All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So basically, I want to start off and talk to you guys about the interface. And like I said, most people, I've heard a lot of people I've read a lot of people and there's a million little menus and stuff you have to hunt through. And so, that's intimidating the first time you open up a piece of software and you're just confronted with just menus, endless menus and options. So I'm going to go through some of the common things that you would see and use the first few times you open Blender to try and get you guys a little bit familiar with it. So first off, you're going to open it up to a view similar to this. It probably actually looks something like this with a little gray bar under here. So one of the coolest things about Blender is that it's got a really dynamic interface. So as you saw, I just pulled this menu up down here, right? So if you look in the corners of any panel on the screen, you'll see these little diagonal lines up here. And you'll notice the mouse changes when you hover over that. So what that is, that's you can kind of, I call it that, it's a handle kind of for each panel. That allows you to dynamically change what you're looking at on the screen and resize things, as you need. So for instance, let's say I'm looking at this, and this is the 3D view, right? This is the most common view you're going to always have pulled up. And I say, okay, well, I need to look at some images. So you just grab the handle, pull it over, and now this button that's on every single panel is what controls the content of the panel. So right here it's saying current editor type for this view. It's 3D, and this one's also 3D, right? But you wanted to see something else, so you click that, and this is a list of every single editor panel in Blender right here. And you would go and just choose whatever you need. So now it's like, okay, I can look at images here, right? So this allows you to, part of that workflow I was talking about. It's really dynamic. And another cool thing about it is, if say you get it set up in a way that you like and you want to keep that, you can save those presets up here. We're not going to worry about that right now, but that's just an option that, for you to know about if you start using it. And you can see it comes with some already. It comes with a few that they think that people would want to use. Now,
how do you get rid of those windows?
That's exactly what I was about to say. Because the first day I opened Blender, I ended up kind of something like this, and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do here? Well, basically, so you minimize them the same way, except don't pull down, click and hold, and you'll notice, oops, sorry, hold on. Click and hold and drag it over like you're going to combine it, and you see this arrow pops up. Well, I haven't let go of the mouse yet, because this allows you now to say, okay, I want obviously, it's going to go and combine towards the arrow. So when you let go, it gets rid of it, right? So drag it to the right first, or drag it towards the closest window first to get the arrow, like so, and then say, go back while you're still holding the mouse if you want to combine the other way, okay? The combining it? You gotta make sure you're dragging it towards the closest one, because if you go the opposite way, it just splits it again. Do you have like 10 open?
Yes.
It's like a puzzle game now.
Yeah.
Okay, so that works on at any time for any panel. This over here on the right, this entire bar is default. Anytime you open up a new, fresher version of Blender, but it doesn't, you can customize that as well. You can change the sizes. You can change what, you can even put like another, look, this is another 3D view up here, right? So if you want to have a look at your model from multiple perspectives at once, that's something you can do with customizing that 3D view up there. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about this bar. So this bar on a default version consists of what's called the outliner up here. The outliner is basically you can think of it as a list of every object in your scene, in your Blender file. Right now I've just got a cube, and the circle is actually the dagger I showed you. So I've got the default cube here, and then the dagger, which is hidden right now. And then this is showing you like there's world properties, and then render layers is something, you don't have to worry about that. And so that's what the outliner is. And it's useful when it comes to, you get a couple hundred objects. You want to make sure you can rename them up there, you can group them, and etc. to keep your project organized. Yeah.
Daggers. Are those only for 2.75 or because I only see lamp, cube, and world?
Oh yeah, no, that's the one I made.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
So yeah, no, your default shapes. If everybody clicks in the middle and hits Shift A, you're gonna get a list of all the different defaults that you can add, and under Mesh, you're gonna see all the default shapes. Okay. So plane, cube, circle, etc. Right?
Should Shift A or Shift A?
Shift A, yeah. So that's the outliner. This panel under here is called the properties panel. And like I said, it's one of the editors that you can choose. And now the properties panel is going to show you a lot of stuff that's very important for your scene. Specifically your materials. This is where you control textures. This is where you control, Blender is it's known as like a full featured 3D suite. So it's got a particle engine, it's got a physics engine, it's got an animation editor, it's got a game engine. You can actually make games in Blender, which is not recommended, but it's possible. So the properties panel has a lot of that stuff. Not going to get into it too deeply right now because we're not going to really be rendering anything. Rendering being, when you create a scene, you apply different textures, materials, lighting effects, physics, and all that stuff. You render it, and here you're just going to have like a rough preview. When you render it, your processor, your GPU is going to actually fully flesh out all those effects to give you the final scene or final image. So that's what these settings are. You can change frames per second on an animation, resolutions, different kinds of performance options, and etc. Your world settings you can change. So like all this stuff you see here, anything on the screen can be changed. So for instance, right now we've got this kind of neutral gray, but I mean we can change that. We can change that world color. I think that's when you actually render it. Nope. Oh, it's not important. You can change this. There's a setting. I thought it was this one, but this is when you render it. This color right here is going to be your background, but you can, if you want, change this color in the background as well. And then you can change some lighting settings and stuff like that in here. This panel is the object panel. This one's got some useful stuff, like, for instance, it'll show you different default displays for objects. So, for instance, like, let's say I have, this is another default, this is like Blender's icon, the monkey. So let's say I have a monkey and I've got it in front of my cube. But say I was trying to make some kind of complicated thing where I needed the cube, to be inside of another mesh, but I still wanted to be able to see it. You can turn on X-ray and see now I can see the cube through any other mesh at any time. This is really useful when it comes to animating, because animating you have what's called an armature. You almost think of it as like a skeleton that you put in, you pair it with a mesh and you move the skeleton and the mesh moves accordingly, right? You want to have the armatures set on X-ray because you need to be able to see them through whatever you're animating. So that's, just one feature that's kind of neat. And there's some other stuff here that's not very not used until you get into some really advanced animation and things like that. Constraints. So constraints are basically you can set like a rail system. If you have like an animation, you want your camera to move through a scene, kind of like in a movie, you can do that with constraints. It's just one example, but we're not going to mess with that right now. Modifiers we are going to mess with, but we're going to wait till we get into the actual modeling. The materials are basically, think of a material as the visual properties of any object. So the color, the texture, you know, how it reflects light, how it how bumpy it is, how smooth it is, rough, etc. So this is just what you see when you add a default material. We're not going to mess with it, but there's a lot of different options, and you can make things in Blender that look like actual photographs if you have the high quality textures and different kinds of maps that you apply to an object.
One thing, can you, for some reason, I'm only seeing your original screen.
You're only seeing what?
Your original,
So screen share first.
Did it really?
so yeah, try stop sharing and sharing again.
Has it been showing that the whole time?
Yeah, just try the entire screen.
How that?
That's better.
Okay. It's good now?
Yeah,
What's up, dude?
yeah.
Okay. All right. Then the last two options here are particles and our physics, which we're not going to mess with, but it's really interesting the stuff you can do, and you know, maybe one day, another day, we could do a more advanced session where we talk about that stuff. Does anybody have any questions up to this point so far?
How are you using it so far?
Oh yeah, sorry, I should have. You know what? I should have said that first. Okay, so our basic controls in our 3D view. Your mouse wheel is going to be your zoom in and out. If you hold Shift and click with your mouse, that's panning. If you click with your mouse without Shift, you're rotating. Okay. And now what I was mentioning before we got started about the numpad, your numpad allows you to switch really quickly between a few different settings. So when I'm basically orthographic mode and perspective mode is the key. You know, that's a key one. Perspective being like things actually fall off with distance as they would if you were actually, like, your eyes worked, right? Orthographic is everything is always viewed directly straight on. There's no perspective at all. And you can see the difference here when I switch between them, right? This is perspective. You can kind of see how the monkey has like a curvature. When I switch to orthographic, it's like you're looking at it completely straight on from that angle with no distortion. 5. The 5 key on your numpad. So the 5 key switches between the two, and when the 1 key is the front, it'll look at the front of your object, whatever's considered. You know, the front is a predetermined thing. You have to add an object and rotate it towards that to have the front be the actual front. You know, because, like, for instance, I'll show you how to do this in a little bit. But say if I have the monkey facing this way and I hit 1, this still it's still the front. I'm still viewing the front. The object's just turned the other way. So the front is not. The system doesn't know what's the front. You have to set that. Okay. 3 shows the right, and 7 shows the top, and this is all on the numpad. Now, if you might say, well, what about the left and the bottom and stuff? Well, you hold Control and hit 1, 3, and 7, and you're going to get back, left, and bottom. Okay, so it's 1 is the front, right, top is 1, 3, 7. And then Control with those keys does the same thing, but just the opposite side. Okay? And then 5 switches between the two, which is really important. And you're going to see why when we start modeling. Okay, so just quick recap. Click with the mouse wheel to rotate. shift click with the mouse wheel to pan, and roll the mouse wheel to zoom in and out. Okay. Now another thing, it's sometimes you'll notice like it jumps in an increment when you zoom. So if you want it to be a smooth zoom, you hold Control, click with your mouse wheel, and then drag, and it rolls smoothly. And you know, now since I'm talking about that, if you go into so these menus that are popping up on the side here, you have your basically display settings menu. You hit N to bring that up. This is your tool bar or your tool bag. You hit T to bring that up. If you're in these menus and you say, okay, well, this text is too small, I want to resize it, the same way I said to do that smooth zoom, Control, click, and drag with the mouse wheel, you can change the size of menus that same exact with that same key press over here. Okay, and it works anywhere. So that's pretty useful. I'll actually do that right now because you guys can probably see it a lot better. Okay. So the display menu it's got some good information for, you know, it's going to show you basically where your object's at in 3D space, if it has any rotation degrees on the different axes, scale, and some things like that. Some stuff about the view here, which we don't really need right now. Your 3D cursor. So your 3D cursor is this red and white striped cursor that you see moving around whenever I click. That thing's really important because when you get into resizing things, rotating things, you know, joining different parts of a mesh together, you can use that 3D cursor as a reference point. So it's important for some specific kinds of manipulations that we're gonna get into when we're modeling. And then you can display some different stuff, like say this grid here. Say you're doing some texturing. You don't need the grid. It's not helping you. You can turn that off. You can turn off the lines. You can actually change the number of lines. You can change the subdivisions of the lines. You know, you can. If I zoom in, you can see it makes it a lot. The grid much finer when you change all the subdivisions, right? And then the scale. Obviously, we can make the grid a lot bigger and smaller. Now, anytime if you want to change anything in Blender to a specific value, you can click and drag on the bar there to just kind of scroll it left and right, or you can just single click and now you can type your value. And so that's useful for being able to, you know, enter specific measurements and such. So that's the display. This display toolbar is more kind of like a context sensitive thing. You don't usually use it until you need it. This tool bag over here, though, you use this a lot more. It's got so that earlier when I talked about adding a mesh and I said hit Shift A, so you can do all that over here as well. It's got some of the basic menus contained over here on this toolbar. And a lot of this stuff can all be done with hotkeys, but if when you're first starting and you don't know, like, okay, where else can I find this? Sometimes it'll be what you need will be over here in this toolbar. The most important thing I'd say you do with it is when you're in edit mode, which we're going to talk about here in just a few minutes, you can change some of the shading settings over here. One more thing that's really useful, if you ever get stuck and you know that you can do a certain feature but you can't figure out for the life of you where it's located, anytime you're stuck like that, hit spacebar, and this is a built-in search option in Blender. And you just type, like, okay, I need to, let's say I want to rotate something. So it'll show you the hotkey if there is one, but also you can click, and now you're going to be doing that. So say I was like, okay, I want to rotate the monkey. If I click it, now look, now I'm in rotate mode. So the space bar is like a search, and it's really useful. There's some complicated keystrokes, like look at this keystroke. Look at that one. You know, it's like sometimes it's hard to remember that. I mean, it's just Shift Alt Control, but That's probably one of the longest keystrokes in Blender. So don't think that you're going to have to hit like 5 things at once. All right, so that's kind of like the general. We've generally covered the basics of anything you'd need right now, just starting out with the interface. But if anybody wants to recap on any part of that, or you have any specific questions, just let me know before we get into actually doing stuff. Anything? Okay. All right, so I'm going to get rid of this monkey here, and now we're going to actually start making something. So first, what we're going to do, I'm going to tell you real quick about edit mode. I'm going to add a cube just to demonstrate that, and then we're going to actually make an asset. So edit mode. So if you look down here, right here where my mouse is at, it says object mode. Object mode you can think of as the broad spectrum, the big picture. I can manipulate, I can move my object, I can rotate it, I can scale it, and I can do kind of general things to it like that. But I can't actually edit vertices. I can't edit the mesh. I can't take this cube and morph it into anything right now. So in order to do that, the hotkey is tab. You tab into edit mode, and you'll see this is switched. And you can click it, but like I was saying, I'm going to teach everything related to the hotkeys. So now we're in edit mode, and you can see that it looks different, right? You can actually see vertices, and you can see edges. If I go back out, it's kind of just showing you the general, okay, it's a cube. So once we're in this, you can start manipulating things. Now, down here in this area, there's 3 little buttons. There's your vertex select, edge select, and face select. And the hotkey for those is Control Tab. So that way you can immediately switch on the fly to editing whatever you need to. So let's say I wanted to grab an edge of this cube. I want to switch to edge mode, and then right-click selects it. Right-click is always select in Blender. And now you're going to have your little manipulator here, and you can drag it however you need to. So I'm going to drag it on the X. Right? So now we no longer have a cube.
Oh, George,
yeah.
Can you do that again? I'm trying to find my remotes and I can't find it.
Hit Control Tab. Make sure you're in edit mode.
Okay.
If you're in object mode, you hit Tab once, and then it'll change. And then you can hit Control Tab to choose what you want to move. And then right-click is always a select. Left-click is always an action. Excuse me. So you, and then you know how in Windows, anytime you're manipulating like a big list of stuff, you can hold down Control and select multiples. You can do that in Blender, and Shift also works. So it's either Control or Shift. So I'm selecting multiple edges at once just by holding down Control, right? Otherwise, you're just going to select a single. Okay? So that's what is different between the edit and the object mode. All right. So now we're gonna start making our dagger asset. So once again, this is what we're gonna end up with. It's gonna look something like this. I'm not gonna follow any kind of blueprint. This is just gonna be kind of on the fly, see what we end up with. So in order to do this, delete anything you got. If you made a cube, delete is X, by the way. So let's say if we got a cube, you can hit delete itself, but the hotkey is X. Okay, so you hit delete. It's gonna ask you. You can delete stuff in edit mode, but it deletes. You know how edit mode is vertices, edges, and faces. It's gonna ask you selectively delete stuff. Right, unless you select it all. So in object mode, it's gonna treat the whole object and do that. Okay. So now. Everybody should still have the grid turned on. If you turned it off earlier, it's under, you hit N and go to display, and you control your grid right here under the grid floor setting. Okay, that turns it on and off. Now, everyone hit Shift C. What that does is that's going to center your 3D cursor right back into the exact center of the grid. And now we're going to hit Shift A, go to Mesh, and we're going to add a circle. So everybody should end up with an empty blank circle right here. Now before you click on anything else, if you don't see this, so hit T to bring up your toolbar, and you'll notice right here I've got kind of some options for adding a circle. Okay, so if you don't see it, delete it and re-add the circle like how we just showed, because immediately, so watch, when I have nothing and I add something now, it's going to show you that the very first time you add. Okay, so what we don't want 32 vertices in this circle, because we're gonna kind of make something that's meant for a game, so it's kind of going to be low polygon. So we're going to take this and drop this down to 8. And then that's the only thing we need to mess with. We're not going to fill it. We're not going to change the radius or anything right now. Okay. So once you've done that, you should obviously see it reflected on the circle. And now you can hit the hotkey A. Select is the select all or deselect all hotkey. So go back into your 3D view and hit A. It deselects the circle, and now that's applied, and now you have that actual 8 vertices circle. Okay, so once again, A selects everything I've got. All right. So I've gotten into the habit of where I turn these on and off as I need them. You do whatever is comfortable for you. If you like to have those options up to kind of look at it, that's fine. But I like to have more space in my 3D view, so that's why you'll see me turn those on and off. But I'll make sure I explain what I'm doing. Okay, so now this circle right here is going to form the basis of our little dagger. So select it with right click and hit Tab to go into edit mode. And you won't see any change because it's just a hollow, it's hollow, right? It's not filled in, it's just a couple of edges and vertices. But make sure that you're in edit mode down here in the bottom left. Okay, so I guess the resize doesn't work in this little menu. Okay, so now we're in edit mode. You're going to learn one of the most useful things you can possibly do in 3D editing. It's called extruding. So everybody hit 1 on your numpad to center. Make sure that up here in the top left, it'll tell you what perspective you're in. So you don't want it to say perspective first right there. You want to hit 5 until it says ortho. Once you're in ortho, hit 1 on your numpad, and we're going to be centered right on the front, kind of looking down parallel to where our circle is laying. Okay. Now the hotkey you're about to use is E. So we're going to hit E, and you're going to start moving your mouse up, and you'll see that our circle is now turning into a cylinder. Okay. So the first time you hit E and start moving your mouse, you kind of got, now this thing is attached to your mouse. All right. Wherever you click, now it's going to set that, and then it's going to, the change is going to be applied. So you want to go straight up vertically, and there it should be snapping. I think the default is that snapping is turned on. If it's not, hold down Control, and it should. Anytime that you're moving, so say like, just for a quick little demonstration right now, I'm moving this and see how it's snapping to each increment. Well, if I hold Control now, I can. It switches between. It's like a hotkey on the fly for no snapping and snapping. So right, and when I release Control, it goes back to snapping again. Okay. So now everybody should be right here. You should have something that looks kind of like this. If you rotate your view up, you'll see it's still hollow. That's okay. We want that. All right. What's that?
Mine's not filled in.
What's it look like?
Just like the wireframe? Yeah, not the wireframe.
Okay, so try hitting Z. Does it look like this?
Yes.
Okay, hit Z. So the hotkey for switching to wireframe view, I was gonna get to that, is Z. So if you've accidentally done that, then hit Z now, and you'll see that it switches to a wireframe and back. Okay. That's also something useful. And we were definitely going to be using that here shortly. All right, so is anybody have any problems at this point? Or is everybody here? Huh?
It's like a paint bucket.
Yeah.
How do I? What's the button do I click to make it the faces?
Z. To fill it in like this?
Yeah.
Z.
Well, no, I didn't stretch it yet.
Oh, you didn't stretch it up? Okay. Well, let me go back. All right. Oops. No, you're good. Deleting my circle. Okay. So once you got it on the okay, you're there. Okay. So hit A to select it all because you still want to. You're in edit. Make sure you're in edit mode down here. Hit A to select everything, and now hit E and start moving your mouse up to extrude. That's called extruding.
Oh,
Okay. You get it?
Yeah.
All right, good. Yeah, no problem. Okay, now what we're going to do, we're forming we're starting with the hilt of the sword, the bottom first. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a little more extruding, and we're going to kind of make a rounded bottom here. Okay. So now what you want to do, you want to still make sure you're in edge mode. So out of these three buttons, the middle one should be selected, or hit Control Tab and choose Select Mode Edge. Now, if you right click, you'll see that you're selecting a single edge at a time, okay? So I want you to go to the bottom of what will be the hilt, hold Alt and select, and it's going to select that entire ring for you, right? So anytime, say you've got a, let me add a sphere real quick so I can demonstrate this a little better. All right, so this is just a basic mesh called an ecosphere. If I hold Alt, I'm still in edge mode. I haven't changed anything. If I hold Alt and right click, you see that I'm selecting actual rings, and it works vertically or horizontally. Okay. And you can, if you hold Alt and Shift, you're going to start selecting multiples. Okay. So that's something really useful to remember. Okay. So now what we're going to do, we got that bottom ring selected. Hit 1 again on your numpad to get it perfectly on the side. You're going to hit E, and then you're going to hit S. And now what you're doing is you're extruding and scaling at the same time. And now see, when I move my mouse, this starts moving out. Let me rotate the view so you can see what is happening. Okay, so I've selected the bottom ring, I hit E, then S, and this is what's going on. So it's extruding those bottom edges and scaling them outward at the same time. Okay? So you don't need to do it very far. Just maybe 1 or 2 increments. I'm going to go 2. And so now you should end up with a shape like this. You need help? No, this is informal, so feel free to interrupt, seriously. Yeah, and if you guys have any questions at all, just let me know.
How do you change the view?
Oh, like this?
Yeah.
Or like this?
Like you, yeah, like that.
Middle click on with your mouse wheel and drag.
What's the first view?
1 on the numpad.
Units. Yeah, we got a couple more.
Where do you see the units?
Do we have another mouse too?
So the units are over here in. You're talking about the size of the object or such, or you're talking about the grid.
Well, you said you went 2 units.
Oh yeah. No, I'm still set to snapping. So watch when I do it. See how it's like.
Okay.
It's still set to snapping, so it's just doing that as part of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
And it's control to.
Control to release the snapping while you're doing
I don't know
something.
how to do the jump.
See what I mean? So it's like smooth.
Oh, George.
And you let numpad.
Yeah.
How do you do the base again? I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah. So are you at this point where you have the bottom ring selected?
How do I select that again?
Hold down Alt and right click the edge at the bottom.
Okay, cool.
You said right click?
Yeah. And so you should end up with the whole bottom ring selected like this.
Okay.
Okay, you got it?
Yeah.
Now hit
Found
E
your numpad.
and then hit S,
And
and you're gonna start dragging your mouse out, and you'll see this growing.
Okay.
Got it? Okay, good. So everybody should still be set to snapping. If you're not, it really doesn't matter. But you just want to go out a little bit off the bottom here. I'm only going out 2 little snaps, and then I'm gonna click to apply it.
What if I went too far?
Then if you went too far and you're like this,
Yeah.
just do the alt right click again, hit S, and scale it back down.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Okay, any questions so far? We got kind of like a top hat. Huh? Yeah. No, you're good. All right, so next step, we're gonna extrude again. So select the ring again with Alt right click, still in edge mode. Hit 1 again on your numpad. Now hit E and go down again. And I'm gonna go down about this far. So another thing with snapping, if you're moving, say I'm extruding, and see how it's snapping on the grid in the background. But if I hold Control, now it's snapping on nothing. Well, what if I'm like, okay, well I want to go halfway? You hold Shift, and now you can get more smaller increments on your snaps.
Could you
Okay.
repeat what your steps were again?
What's that?
You said select the ring, and what was the hotkey you used?
Hit 1 on your numpad to get back in the front, and then E to extrude, and just go down this time. Because you're going to end up with something like this. Okay, any questions? You guys okay? Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. So now what we're gonna do,
Okay. Awesome.
we're gonna keep extruding. We're gonna finish up the bottom of this hilt here. So rotate around to where you can see that bottom edge and select it again with Alt right click. Go back to your front view. The reason I keep going back to the front view is a lot of times what you're doing when you extrude stuff and you move it, you're moving it kind of in relation to your view. So when I do this and I extrude downward, you see how there's no way to tell if that's perfectly vertical down because it's not. See, so that's why being able to manipulate that orthographic view is so important, because everything you do when you move stuff around, if you want things to be straight and aligned, you have to make your view straight and aligned, okay? So we're going to extrude again, and we're going to scale again. So it might be kind of hard to see. You actually don't need to be snapped on the view this time, but you can view it, hit E, then S, and go in this time. Okay? I'm just going to go in a little bit. Now I've got something like this going on the bottom.
Oh, George.
Yeah.
I came up with a spiral pattern. Is that normal?
Did you hit bar or anything like that?
You went in way too far.
Uh,
I think you went in too far.
Oh,
vertices
Did you
are
go
all
like
normal.
this?
yeah.
Okay.
It's like a shuriken.
So select it again. Make sure it's still selected, or select that edge again. Hit S, and basically what you've done is you've gone over itself. You see what I mean? Like I've scaled so far that now the edges on the left are going to the right. You see what I mean?
Okay.
So just scale. So just anytime you roll across the middle, it uses the middle of that dotted line. Where that dotted line sourced from is like the 0 point. So roll back across that middle, and oh man, that's ugly. And you should start getting back into a normal shape. Did that fix it?
No, it's still giving me a spiral.
You extruded again.
I'll
You
take
extruded
one.
your extrusion.
Oh, did you extrude twice?
Yeah, you grabbed the wrong ring.
Yeah. Control Z, man.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, see, the thing about extruding actually creates an entire new set of vertices. So if you don't move it, you've got technically two laying on top of each other. So it's not, we're going to talk about that, how to get rid of that here shortly.
Yeah, and flashlights.
All right.
That's one of our
Save it, ship it.
It's like a lightsaber.
Yeah.
George
All right.
Maximus shows me.
Okay, so now, if you have that inner ring selected, you should be good. Otherwise, select it. Now you do want to snap back to this view. Okay, hit 1 on your numpad, and we're going to hit E again and extrude downward again. Not too far, just like kind of about that much. And now what you're going to do is once you have that applied, so in order to apply it right, like I said, once you're done extruding, you left click and it's going to apply. Now you'll notice it's not attached to your mouse anymore. Now hit S and scale that inward some. And you're going to end up like this. And you can see how we're starting to form the base of the hilt, right? This is going to be your handle going up. This is going to be the bottom of the sword. Now, once you've done that, we're going to do that same thing about maybe 2 more times. So just extrude down, scale in, extrude down, scale in. And you're going to kind of, the goal here, you want to go for kind of a rounded shape, okay? So I didn't do anything new. I just repeated the same process I just showed you guys. And you'll notice that now, because you've done it from the front perspective view, and you've scaled it in each time, it's kind of formed a dome.
Should we close the dome off or like leave it to hold the bottom?
No, you're going to close it off. So in order to close it off, select it, just like any other ring. And now there's a hotkey that's create face. That hotkey is F. When you hit F, you will notice now you have a fully closed off bottom of your hilt. Okay?
I got too many polygons.
What's that?
It works. I don't think I got too many extrusions.
Oh, no,
It's fine.
yeah, no, this is kind of cool because everybody should kind of slightly end up with something a little different, especially when we start customizing the blade. Okay, so now we're going to finish off the handle. This part's easy. We're really just going to kind of extrude it up, make it a little longer. So hit 1 to snap, back your view back to the front. Select that top edge and hit E and extrude your handle up a little further. Maybe, I've done it 2 more times, giving it a couple more segments.
It was control and right click.
Alt right click to select the whole ring, yeah.
There we go. How far can we go in here?
Just go however far, looks good to you. Now, I'll show you this. I'll show you something real quick. It's obviously nothing we're doing right now has to be permanent in any way. If you want to come back later and edit any of this, it's completely easy, it's completely feasible. You just have to know what pieces to select and how you want to move them. So for instance, let's say I look at this and I say, wait, my handle, this piece right here feels like it's a little too small. I want to grab that and move that up. All you have to do is select the 2 rings, just like you have been, and then take the manipulator here and move it up on the Z-axis, right? And so now it seems a little more proportional for what would be the handle here. And I mean, that can be done with anything. You know, it's like, okay, what if I want to scale this in a little, make this look a little nicer. You can just go in, and this is what I was talking about at the beginning about, you know, once that interface kind of becomes second nature, it's not about finding what key to push, it's about what you want to manipulate. All right, so that we're going to call that handle done for right now. Later we can come back and edit it a little more. We probably will, because it's just like, it looks like a flashlight. It doesn't really look like a handle. Actually, here, go ahead and do this. So select the two inner rings, just like you have in, Alt right click, and hit scale or S, and scale those in a little bit. And you'll notice they kind of shrink together, but that's okay. And this is going to actually make the handle look a little more realistic, right? Because you would never have a perfectly vertical cylinder. You mean for which part? Oh, you mean the way I'm selecting it like that? Yeah. Oh, you mean you mean this kind of thing? Or I don't know what you mean by cutting.
He extruded a couple of different times.
I think it means the alt and right click.
Yeah. So yeah, when you're back here, all I did was I hit E. I snapped the view with 1 to the front, and then I hit E and extruded it upward twice, like that. Oh yeah, no.
Is there a way to just?
There is a way, actually. So if you're only in edit mode, if you want to cut something and add a new edge, kind of cut a new edge, the hotkey is Control R, and you'll see a pink line appears. This pink line is showing you where the cut's going to happen. And if you roll the mouse wheel, you can actually change the number of cuts. And so say I want to cut once here, you cut it, and now I can move it, and then I click again, and now it applies, right? And so now it's created new faces. That's right. So yeah, that's actually a very, something, we're going to use that. That's actually a very important hotkey.
So what happens when you alt select and it's missing a face or missing an edge?
So like say you mean you did this and you ended up with something like that?
Yep.
You can just hold shift and go in and right click and select what you're missing.
Oh, shift, gotcha.
Or if it did that, if it's doing that, if it looks like it's a complete circle and it's doing that, you may have multiple things stacked on top of each other, like how Rico is having that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go ahead and show you guys. Remember, hey, Rico.
I'm not catching up with speed.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah.
I've been goofing.
No, you're fine. Well, here, listen to this. This is going to help you guys actually if you're having those mesh problems. So what you want to do, there's a thing when two vertices are laying on top of each other, it causes all kinds of geometry issues, right? So you want to hit A to select everything in your mesh. Hit Control V to pull up a vertices menu, and there's an option right here called Remove Doubles. What that is going to do is that anywhere the Blender detects two vertices on top of each other, it will merge them into one. So a lot of times, if you're having weird geometry problems and like stuff doesn't look right or shading's messed up, you want to check that and remove doubles. So look, I had it. Mine removed 8 vertices. It'll show you up here at the top. So I had some part in here where I probably extruded and then canceled it, and it doesn't cancel the extrusion all the way, it just cancels the movement. So you end up with two pieces laying on top of each other. Okay, so we're gonna call that handle done for now. Do you guys need me to take a look at it or anything?
Maybe.
I'll walk around and shit.
Now, God, that's up.
show everybody.
How many should I go in? So use Alt and right click on that ring up there. Click down here, click that middle button to go into edge.
Online learning platform of the future.
Now, Alt and right click there on that ring. No, more like in the middle of that edge right there. There you go. Now hit S and just move in. See how, yeah. So that's just the hotkey for scale. So that's how I did it. I didn't go quite as far, but it's the same thing. You're talking about how this kind of leans in. Yeah, that's how I did it. No, dude, you're good.
Extra extrusion in there. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You said how double
So
extrusion.
just delete that. Just hit X and hit delete vertices. Yeah. There you go. And then hit A real quick.
Okay.
And now hit Control N. What that's going to do is recalculate your normals. So now see how it's like you had some faces that were facing in as opposed to that's all that is. Yeah, if anybody has a mesh that looks really dark and weird, like the shading, see how mine it kind of looks like bright and kind of even. If you got it weird looking, you want to hit A to select the whole thing and then hit Control N. Nice, there you go, dude. The edge stroke, so you can either right click this, hit tab, and because the edge mode is only in edit. So see now you're in edit mode. So those three buttons right there is vertices, edge, and face, and you're in edge mode. So, okay, so I think did you scale it when you were not in a? Let me make sure that mine didn't do that. And sometimes I thought that it would have. No, mine didn't. Sometimes it'll scale things, but it'll do it on the wrong axis, and it's something to do with like how you're looking at it. So basically, what that looks like to me is somehow it was scaling it only on one axis for you, like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you want to either undo back. Undo's Control Z, by the way, just like like it is on almost all Windows things. Either try and undo that back, or you may have to delete that ring and re-extrude from something that's not scaled in.
I wonder how far back.
If you undo it and you want to redo it, I think it is Control Shift Z. So let me try. If I want to, like, say I delete this. It was Control Shift Z. Redo. Here it is. Shift Control Z. Yeah, but for some reason it doesn't always.
How do you do delete
Oh yeah, no, it
doubles?
works. Yeah, Shift Control Z. So hit A. You're gonna highlight the whole mesh.
Yeah.
Go to hit Control V, and it's down. It's right here.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I think that may have been one of my problems.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. When you have meshes laying on top of each other, it gets nasty. Give those guys a minute before we move on to the actual getting ready to start the blade and stuff. So I mean, so you guys that haven't really done anything to this point, like this, if this is the farthest you've gone, what's your first impression? Do you feel like the interface is kind of clunky? Do you feel like there's too many like the hotkeys are overwhelming, or what do you feel?
There are a lot of hotkeys.
A lot of hotkeys, right? Tons.
It's a lot of things to remember.
Exactly.
Playing Dwarf Fortress, so this is just another thing to learn.
Oh, dude, then you're good. This will be no challenge. This will be no challenge. It took me about 4 or 5 months before I was doing the majority of things without needing to look up stuff.
I think my ultimate goal is I'd like to get into where I can take a model apart and redo moving mappings of it.
Oh yeah,
And save it back out. That's like my.
like the stuff you see me doing on the
Yeah, exactly.
streams before. Yeah. You guys need me to? You good? You want to look at it?
Yeah, you can look at this horrible sword.
No,
Looks like an epic gun.
Okay, I think I'm good.
That's good.
Yeah, why you got a nipple?
Another sword.
Breast dagger in the land.
It's like Final Fantasy, bro.
Okay. All right, we're gonna move on to the next part. Okay, so what I want everybody to do, when you add a new mesh, it adds at your 3D cursor. Okay, but when you select around like this, you don't know, how can you tell on an XY scale where that is? You can't, right? I couldn't even tell on the Z scale. That could be lined up perfectly with the sword or floating above it. Okay. So what we want to do is there's ways to perfectly manipulate your 3D cursor to where you want. So I want everybody to Alt right click on the top of that sword. You're going to hit Shift S. And what this is this is a snap menu for the cursor and for the selection. We're going to snap cursor to selected. And you'll see that now my 3D cursor is perfectly level and centered on that piece of the sword, on that ring.
What if mine's not centered?
Yeah.
Then it means your ring is not perfectly uniform.
Okay, I'll buy that.
Does it hit 7 and see? Look at it from the top, and you should see something kind of like this.
It looks centered on all the.
Maybe kind of right here is not quite centered, but
It's an organic model. That's
Is it close enough?
yeah, probably.
No, we're gonna start the next part of the sword. We're gonna start the cross
Oh
guard.
god. Okay. Oh, that's just okay. Yeah. All right. So if oh boy.
What happened?
Well, I tried to recenter the 3D cursor,
Uh-huh.
but I think it put it at the bottom of the sword
Oh, really?
instead of at the top.
Did you have the bottom selected?
Probably.
Okay. Just we go back and reselect that top ring.
Then Shift S.
And then snap cursor to selected. Yeah.
Okay, that's better.
Okay.
I think the problem is it's not selecting one edge of the ring.
I feel like that might be because you got some geometry laying on top of itself, but I can't.
Yeah.
So now, tab out of edit mode. Your cursor stays where it was, but now you see you're not able to edit that hilt anymore. So we want that though, because what we're going to do is we're going to make the blade, the crossguard, and the hilt separate objects and then combine them later. Okay. So go ahead and hit Shift A and add a cube. And now drag that cube up to where it's kind of, at the very top of your handle. And you can kind of start manipulating it right now to get close to, having it look like a sword guard. So what you can do is you can, anytime there's multiple axes to choose from with something you're doing, you can hit the letter that corresponds and do that. Now what I mean by that is hit scale, hit S to scale, and then hit X. And now you're scaling only on that X axis. See what I mean?
Okay, and how do you create this?
Shift A.
Shift A. There we go.
Yep.
Shift A. Then mesh.
Shift A mesh cube.
Got it.
Okay. And now you hit S and then X to isolate it to only the X axis and scale it out. to something you like, it doesn't have to be out like this far. We're going to manipulate it more to curve it up and make it look nice, but just get something kind of started here. What's up?
The infinity cross guard that extends on to eternity.
All right.
That's excellent. There you go. So I'll shrink it. That's, there you go.
Okay, so now you want to select it with right click, tab, and go into edit mode. And we're going to start doing some stuff to make this look like an actual cross guard. So now what I want you guys to do is, I talked about the shortcut earlier for, it's called a loop cut. We're going to loop cut this thing into a couple different pieces so we can start making it, we're going to curve it. So hit Control R once you're in edit mode, and when you hover over it in the middle, you'll see that pink line show up as for where your cut's going to be. Now roll your mouse wheel, don't click yet, roll your mouse wheel to get 4 cuts. When you have 4 cuts, now click, and then click again. Don't move. If you move it, you're going to move those left and right, but you don't need to do that. We want them centered, right? So they default to where the pink lines were, which is centered. And now we've cut that cube into several other cubes. Now what I want you guys to do, Control Tab, go to Face Select. You're going to select. Actually, first I'm going to tell you about modifiers. This is a perfect opportunity. Modifiers are different things that allow you to apply special properties to your objects. So back over here in the Properties panel, you click on the wrench. That's the modifier menu. Okay. I'm just dragging this out so everybody can see it. So now these are all the different modifiers that you have, and they're categorized into kind of a general description of what they do. Deform, generate, modify, etc. The generate section is what you use the most in modeling, specifically mirror. This one gets used, I think, by far more than any other modifier, because a lot of times you're making things deal with symmetry. Spaceships, cars, swords, parts of houses, human bodies, everything deals with symmetry, right? So the mirror modifier gets used all the time. Now, in order to use this, though, if I apply this right now, you don't see anything, because this thing is being mirrored according to that little orange dot, which is its origin. If I choose something different and say, okay, I want it to be mirrored according to, let's see, still not, that one's perfectly centered. I'll temporarily set my, don't worry about this, but now look. Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah. So it's mirroring now according to where the 3D cursor is, where that origin is. Right? So basically what that means is we want to change this to where we only have to work on one side and everything will be immediately reflected on the other side. But we can't do that right now because we've got both sides as part of the object. So in order to get the mirror modifier working, you need to cut what you're doing in half. So that the left side doesn't exist, the mirror modifier will create it, okay? So I'm going to go to this, still in edit mode, I'm still in edge select mode. I'm going to do another loop cut with Control R right down the middle of my cross guard. Apply it, and you're going to end up with this or something similar. Right now, just cut that thing in half. What you want to do now is either snap your view to the top or to the front with 1 or 7 on your numpad. Hit Z to go into wireframe. Now the key thing to remember about wireframe is that when you're in this mode, when you're non-wireframe, you only select what you see. So if I select this, notice how I only got the front. I didn't get the back, right? But now if I'm in wireframe and I select, watch the difference. See, I've gotten everything. It looks through the mesh and selects everything. So what I'm going to do is hit Z to go to wireframe, hit B for box select, and you're going to get this nice crosshair to guide you. By the way, I'm in vertice select now. So either hit Control Tab and go to vertex, or click it down at the bottom. Hit B to get your box, and I'm going to drag it around everything up to the halfway cut that we made. I'm then going to hit X and delete those vertices. And you should have only the half remaining centered around where you did that cut. Okay. Yeah.
Quick question. When I make that second cut, I have one extra one, but it looks blank.
Hold
That
on.
makes any sense.
Let me come look.
Well, delete the first one, but not versus question.
Okay, hit Control Z. Go back to where that happened. Okay, so basically what happened was when you selected everything correctly, but you also had that vertex, so it deleted that one and all those. And when it deleted it, it cut out those 2 edges as well, so it made a gap.
Okay.
So hit A. Okay, yeah. See, A either selects everything or nothing. So hit A again. Now snap to the front, and then you want to click and drag and select only the piece you're gonna mirror. So you should go up to about, yeah. Mm-hmm. Now hit X and delete. Yeah, what's up?
Putting a separate object. That's one good for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did it separate right now just because it's easier to manipulate. And if we did it as a whole one right now, and we're trying to apply mirrors, it'd be all messy because we'd be applying the mirror to the handle and to the guard. So we're keeping it separate right now. We're gonna, when we finish making everything, we'll combine all the pieces. Got it? Yeah, no problem. Okay, so now we're still in object mode, or go back out to object mode. Click on your object, which is our guard here. Go to the wrench menu, add modifier, click it, and under the generate column, go down to mirror.
Fancy.
And now your origin should have stayed in the middle the whole time. I manipulated mine, but don't worry about that. When you select the x-axis, you should get that missing half. And now you'll notice when you tab into edit mode, only half of that is editable because the rest is being generated by the modifier. Okay? And now if you look, every single thing I do on this side is doing it on the other side for me. Yeah, what's up?
One more question.
Yeah.
After I mirrored it, I have a blank.
I think he deleted too many vertices.
I think you either deleted too many or it wasn't perfectly centered or something.
Okay.
It was centered. He went too far.
Okay.
Try again.
Yeah, just it saves a good bit of history. You can undo it back. And
Went too far, Rico. Too far. Cross the line.
All right.
Literally a line.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back into edit mode on that guard, and we're going to start grabbing this thing and moving it out, curving it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Control Tab, go to Face Select. When you're in face mode, these little black dots that show up, those are the centers of the face, and those are what actually selects it. So for instance, if I'm dragging a box, Well, usually it's always that thing, but all right, never mind. I thought that usually you have to select that black dot, but I guess it'll select it regardless. So anyway, but that is the center, and that represents where the normal is going to be pointing out of. So select the end face. We're going to hit G, which is grab. It allows for free movement. And then if you're in snapping, you want to hold down control so that you can move it at will. And just move that up and kind of start your curve going. So once again, that was, go back, I went into edit mode after I had my mirror applied. I went to face mode with control tab, face, selected that end. I snapped back to my front view with 1 on my numpad, and then I hit G, which is grab. It allows you to just move something with the mouse. I held control, which lets me have free movement, and I just moved it up and to the right. And this is what I end up with. On the X. Well, I mean, it depends on how you have it pointing, but see here how the X-axis is red? So I had my object oriented on the X-axis, so I wanted to mirror it on the X-axis. Okay. So now once we're here, does anybody have any questions on how we got to that point? Or any? Are you guys you guys need any help back there?
I'm just catching up.
Okay.
Yeah. I went back too far and I still beat up.
No, man, you're good. So it's a learning experience. You should definitely not expect to be proficient at this with one day. All right, what we're gonna do, we're gonna talk about there's a pretty cool feature, something that's pretty unique. It's called proportional editing, and this is something really neat for modeling. So first, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this ring, and I'm gonna slide this thing up a little. And the way you do that is you Alt-right click to select it. Should have the whole thing. You hit G twice, and that switches you into edge slide mode. So now basically all I'm doing is sliding that edge along the mesh. You see? And so you'll notice right away when you start sliding it up, if yours was similar to mine, that you get a nicer curve going because now you're averaging those angles in between. Okay? So we're just doing that to kind of get a nicer shape before we start scaling it. Yeah. No, you're fine.
For some reason, finding your modifier is not working.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So basically what it's doing, right, that orange dot in the middle there is the origin. And that origin is where it's mirrored from. So go into edit mode, and you got to delete half of it. You got to delete, so zoom in a little, center back on it, and now hit paint. Okay, so why is it? Did you change the color on it to make it so dark? Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. No, you're good. It might be easier at this point to just delete that thing and start with the new cube. It's got a whole bunch of stuff going on now. No, you're good. So, yeah, delete it. Here, watch. I'll show you real quick again what I did. I'll make a separate one real quick. So I started with a cube, right? Went like this, and now I was in edit mode. I just cut it. I did several cuts, but that's not important. You just have to have one that's perfectly centered. See how this origin is here, the orange dot is, and there's a cut centered on it. Then once you can go in and delete that half. And now that's important because now my origin is perfectly centered on that half, right? And so then I can go in and say add modifier mirror, and it's already selected for X. And see now it's got perfectly that half. Okay? Yeah, so just make sure you gotta cut it in half first, but make sure your cut is perfectly in the middle. Okay? All right, so now we're going to do what's called the proportional editing. And you do that, you want to, just like we were before when we first started moving this thing, go back into edit mode, select that face on the end. Now the hotkey to turn on proportional editing is O. Or if you look down here at the bottom, this menu, it's basically it's like a little circle next to the magnet. That's your proportional editing menu. So you just want to hit enable. O does that. O enables it. Now what proportional editing does, it allows, it's kind of like an algorithm that uses an influence area, and it will use these fall-offs that you see here. Everything you edit will be edited with that kind of fall-off in that field. And I'll show you, it's easier to just see it in action. So we want smooth. Now watch what happens when I start doing this. When I hit grab, I'm just demonstrating it right now. When I hit grab, I get this circle. This circle is the influence field. So if I do this out, now watch when I move this. See how everything moves in a proportion? Whereas before, now if I have proportional editing off and I do that, only that end moves. See? So now with proportional editing, we turn it on, we can scale, and you see how our whole blade kind of proportionally, or our whole piece proportionally scales to look to match, you know, that fall off.
What was the hotkey for proportional editing?
Oh.
Oh.
There's also this menu right down here at the bottom next to the magnet is where you turn it on. But O is the hotkey. All right, and so now what I've done is I've just selected that in face before it, and I roll your mouse wheel to move that influence field, and you'll see it in action. If you know, if you've got something going on, like you can see how it's everything inside the field now gets affected as I move it. But all I did was I kept it about here because I don't want to affect my center, right? We want the center to stay solid where it's at. I just want to scale the ends to make them like kind of taper off. So I hit S to start scaling, and then I move this influence field and kind of scaled it in, and everything moves to match it, and now I end up with this really nice taper effect. Nice.
Just to grab the face of the
Grab that one. Just that single one. So here, include this right here. That one. Yeah, click it again. See how you got all that in the background? That, I mean, if you like that, you can turn it on, but I think it's distracting. It basically shows you the mesh kind of like an X-ray thing. But so yeah, just select that end piece. Just right click it. That on the dot right there. Yeah, there you go.
First. You press up.
Yeah, you're already on. So hit S or center back up on your view a little. Hit escape real quick. So there, center it to where it's nice in the middle where you can see what's going on. Yeah, there you go. Now watch. Now scroll that mouse wheel up and down, and you're gonna watch as that field grows. Everything proportionally gets affected. Yeah, there you go. So keep going. Keep going. See there, see it. Yeah.
So that was a single side offset, so we should extrude the increase to pick up the gap.
Okay.
There's it's got like a little wonky extra, you know.
We can fix that. Not that far.
It's cool looking dagger.
Actually, that would look cool if that was the real mesh instead of being like smashed on itself.
It's a good dude. It's beyond time and space. Check know your spear ankles.
Yeah, dude.
Don't be inside out. Pro tip, don't be inside out.
Roll your mouse over because you're there. Go ahead. There. Back other way. No, go left, I think. Go up. There you go. Okay. Well, now when that starts happening, just hit escape and start scaling from further out. Because it's like if your mouse starts far away, so move the mouse all the way over here. Now hit S. See how you have much more control now? So when you're really close, it's really sensitive. And then now roll the mouse wheel up. Roll your mouse wheel up or other way, to grow that. And when you grow it out, you'll see this kind of nicely tapers in. But remember, only everything in the white circle is going to get affected by that. Okay. So that's pretty much. We're going to go back at the end and do some like kind of little details. But for now, that's what we're gonna leave the hilt with this. The guard. Move this over. Mine had a little gap. Okay. All right. So does anybody want me to take a look at anything or recap anything that we've done so far? Very good. Yeah. So basically, what you want to do is you want to, once you got your, so you got your cube here, right? And you've got some, so it's going to have some cuts in it. Okay. So you want to hit O, turns on proportional editing. And now what this is going to do is anything you edit, it's going to have like a field, like a circle. If you edit things, it's going to get affected. Everything in that circle is going to get affected proportionally. So now watch. When I hit S to scale, see I get this circle that pops up? Now watch. When I scale, everything in the circle also gets scaled to match that proportionally. See? So what you do is you want to roll the mouse wheel to change that. You don't want your center affected because you want that to stay like it's part of the blade, part of the hilt. You just want to edit this edge, and so scale it in some, and then move it up to get a nice little curve going. And you should end up back with something similar to this. Yeah, no problem. So it's kind of where it ended. Yeah, you got it. Now, let me. Hey everybody, I've noticed that some of you guys having like. I'm sure if it's happening to one person, it's definitely happening to more. So when you scale stuff in Blender or move or do anything, so see this dotted line that pops up? This dotted line is like your control point of reference. I kind of mentioned it earlier, but the base of the start of the dotted line, which is right here, is where it's like a 0 point that will go into the negatives. So it doesn't matter where I start. If I start over here or if I start over here, it's the same effect. But when you roll across that, you've now twisted that mesh across itself into a negative scale. And this is really bad. I'm sure not only you can see from the way it looks, but I mean, look at this geometry, right? So you want to avoid doing that if you can. And if you see it happening, undo it or roll your mouse back across. And now with this, always start scaling. If you need more control, start from further back. Because when you start from further back, every little, you have a lot, it's like the scale of movement is bigger. If you start scaling right here next to this origin, the tiniest movement of my mouse will, it's very sensitive, so it's hard to control. So if you start like right here, it's like, how can you get a fine, adjustment out of that? You can't. right? And see, it's just crazy. So usually you want to start at least a couple, like actual viewing the screen wise, maybe like 5-6 inches away from wherever the center point is. And that way you have a lot more control. Okay. So now we're going to get started on the blade, which is the cool part. And this is the part where I've already seen people kind of making their own adjustments, which is awesome. This was kind of meant to be that way, to see what everybody else, what everybody ended up with. But the blade is where you can really make your sword look unique. So what we're going to do, really similar to earlier, how we snapped the 3D cursor to the middle. You can do the same thing with this this time, because remember we started with this hilt centered over the hilt. I mean, this guard centered over the hilt. So you can either select your hilt here, or you can select your blade here and hit Shift S, cursor to selected. You can, there's a few other ways to do it. Like you can, if you go to the mirror modifier, the eyeball, you can turn that off and it'll just basically temporarily not show it. You can select that ring there and snap the cursor to that, which will also center it, and we'll assuming that you kept your pieces centered. Or you can click on the, once you have the guard selected, you can hit H to temporarily hide it. This is another useful shortcut. H and Alt H will hide and unhide things. This gets useful for, say you're building like a room, and you're building like or maybe a small, anything that's like got an interior. You can hide entire faces and like the walls of something you're building, so you can see the inside easily to manipulate stuff, right? So the reason I'm showing you now is because say you're like, okay, well my guard is not centered, but it's good enough, but I want my blade to be perfectly centered over the hilt. So you can hide the guard with H. You don't have to do this, I'm just showing you, it's useful. Select that ring like we did, do cursor to selected again, and then hit Alt H, go back out of edit mode, hit Alt H. And now you can go ahead and add in the next piece, which is going to be we're going to add a plane to start making our sword, our blade. So once you've got your cursor centered, and if you need any advice or help or whatever, just let me know. Go ahead and hit Shift A and add in a plane. So now for me, my plane is kind of hidden because my cursor was down in the middle. But that's fine, because once you add it, you're going to be able to grab the manipulator and just drag it up. So now I got it up here. I'm going to give you guys a second for everybody to get caught up.
Oh, George, what was the command for snapping center again?
Shift S. So whatever you have selected, you hit Shift S, and you have the options for either snapping that selection or snapping the cursor. So what I do is I like to snap my cursor to selected of whatever I need it centered over. You can select stuff. It's pretty easy to select stuff in wireframe too, especially in edit mode. Only what you can see, only what you have selected will be selectable. So for instance, I have the hilt selected, so I can only select pieces of the hilt. I can't select anything up here. Okay, so that's another easy way to select it. Just, you don't have to worry about hiding or anything. Just go to wireframe, select that, cursor to selected, and then I can add in my next piece. Okay. So now once we got our plane, we got it kind of in our rough position for where we want to start the blade. You're gonna hit R, X, and then type 90 on your keyboard for 90 degrees. And that rotates that plane 90 degrees on the x-axis. Now real quick, while I'm in this mode, I haven't applied this yet. If you look down here in the bottom left, it's small. This little bar right here, right under my mouse, is showing you exactly what operation you're about to perform. So this is like an information bar. A lot of times, whenever you do stuff, you get information on it down there. So in this case, it's showing me rotate 90 degrees on the x-axis, right? And once I'm satisfied with that, you just click or hit enter to apply it. Now you see I got my what looks like a broken blade sort of starting to form. All right, so now we're going to select our blade. You know, if it was still kind of like down in here or whatever after it rotated, just drag it up into what looks like a nice little position. We're going to hit tab to go into edit mode on this plane. And now we can start extruding and basically scaling and all the stuff we've already done at this point to make ourselves a nice, cool looking blade. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do a couple of extrusions and scaling. You know, you guys should have already done this a couple times by now, combined with just moving edges around. And I'm going to start making a blade. So right now I'm going to just extrude. Let's see. I like it when swords kind of flare out at the bottom some. Maybe not that much. Let's go up. Scale this in a little. All right. So all I've done, I just started with that flat square plane, and I just moved edges, extruded edges, and scaled to make what looks like a blade starting. And so once again, you know, if you didn't see that, I'm going to undo everything. So this is where we started, right? I just selected this edge, kind of drug it down, I scaled it with S. And now I'm snapping my view, you know, with the orthographic, in orthographic mode, I'm hitting 1 on the keypad. And now you just hit E and just extrude. And, you know, try to make it interesting. This is where your blade is going to look like whatever you want it to be. You can add, like, you know, some blades, like fantasy games have blades with like a spike here. You do that. Make it thin. You make it weird looking. Do whatever. You can have something like this. I mean, look at that thing.
Guitar solo.
So,
Now, one thing I am going to do to be able to make my blade a little more interesting, I'm going to cut it down the middle with Control R. And this is to avoid having it so it's like square. Everything's like a square. Because now what you can do is you can go into vertex select mode, and you can like drag some things, right? All I'm doing is like selecting the vertices and dragging them. It just kind of gives it a little more. You can see how when we're going to make this thick. Right now it's just a single plane. When we thicken this thing up, you can see how we can have a little bit more variation going on here.
How do you stop your thing from being hollow? I don't know what I pressed it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Wireframe mode.
Why would you need the thing snap?
Oops.
My friend here accidentally did it, so whenever I leave it, we separate my camera.
So you can hold control down when you're moving it, and that'll cancel the snap. Or if you want to turn off the snap completely down here in the bottom, see that little magnet? You can still check on that, click on that magnet, and that turns off snapping. Yeah, but like I was saying, if you want to see how when I move something, here it snaps every time. If you hold control, now you're in free movement. But when you let go of control, now it's snapping again. Okay. Yeah. All right. So at this point, everybody should have kind of gotten the sword going, a little blade going. Now, to make your point, see, I stopped it right here because, you know, you don't, if you try and scale this in like to a point, it's probably going to, either you're going to cross over yourself or you're not going to make it completely a single point, right? Like this is really small, but it's still not. So what you want to do in order to collapse that into a single point is select all those vertices, hit W, and this brings up a menu of options, you know, like it's called specials. There's a merge option here. The shortcut is Alt-M, but I've noticed that when if you think about it, your hand's on the mouse and your other hand is over here, like, you know, Alt-M is an awkward shortcut key to push with one hand. You can do it with the right Alt, but I mean, who uses right Alt for stuff? So I just use W and go to merge. I think that's a lot easier. When you click merge, you're going to have a couple of options here. So collapse and at center essentially do the same thing. When we select that, when we select collapse, you'll notice that all those points collapse into one, and now I've got a point. All right, so did everyone cut their blade down the middle?
No.
No?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's made like a machete style blade, or it's not symmetrical.
That's fine. Well, here, watch what I do now and see how it applies to yours. And if it doesn't, then there's other ways to thicken it up. But basically what I'm going to do is I selected, because my blade's cut down the middle, I selected some of these center edges. Not this one and not this one. And I'm just going to grab these on the Y axis and drag them out. And now if you look at my blade from the side, it's got some thickness for me. See how I did that? So I'm sure there's a way you can still do that on your machete one. You may want to, I undid mine because I noticed I still want the bottom to look like, you know, if you look here when I did this, look at the bottom. It's still kind of unrealistic looking because now it's like, not only that, I have some ugly geometry going on because this face got distorted. So I'm going to undo that, select this bottom one, and do it again because now this looks much more realistic. Like the blade has thickness all the way to the bottom. And you can always edit the top piece again, you know, to make it. There's plenty of opportunity we'll have to edit this to make it look nicer. But we just want to get some thickness going on the blade for now before we start that. All right, so this is what we got so far.
I want to hear your advice on this.
Okay.
You need your advice on
Okay, yeah.
Oh, no.
It wasn't tempered.
Okay. So what I would say is extrude the whole thing. So like select the entire, just hit A to select all the faces. And now you want to hit rotate some. Yeah, go to face it. Shouldn't matter, but yeah. Now rotate it where you can see, now hit E then Y. You're gonna have to recenter it some because it's going, off to the side. But make it however you want. And now from there, now you can start, whenever you now hit A again and do Control A position. It's pretty good. And now at this point, you can make whatever looks sharp or dull by like combining those edges. You saw how I did the collapse thing. So just go down and select vertices and then hit collapse. Whatever you want to combine something to make it sharper.
I got
No, you're good.
on the 93 angle portion. So, and
Oh, you got you have your center, your cursor centered where you want to add the blade?
should have
Yep.
Oh, no, that's not right.
That's good. Where do you want your blade? Do you want it to come up out of that kind of middle? Okay, so select that face. Now do cursor select. Yeah. Yep. W and then merge, and it's under that menu. RX 90. There you go. Now drag it up on the Z. Yeah. It is, but I was saying that I feel like that's a really awkward shortcut when you're already kind of like this. I don't like having to move over. So, there's multiple ways to get to it. Alt-N works as well. Okay, so now all I did at that point was I just started extruding.
Okay, now my question is,
Yeah.
it's gonna go.
Oh, no, so hit escape and then hit Control Z. Okay, so now go to Edge Select. The Control Tab. Edge.
Oh,
Now select only the top edge. Yep, now you can snap your view back to the front of one. Now extrude up. There you go. And now basically all I did to get to where I'm at, I extruded it and like I didn't go that far. I didn't make it with the blade all at once. I would be like, okay, I want it to flare out here. So I'd extrude to here and then scale that. And then extrude that and scale that in. You see what I'm saying?
yeah.
All right, I'll do another quick one. Did you guys have a question?
Why is my
Is it you added it as a separate object?
Yeah.
Are you in? Zoom in.
Okay, so how do I make it thick again?
It's if you're just so far out, hit tab. There you go.
You're just viewing like the wires of it.
Do go on the vertex selection.
On the vertex selection, just move it out.
Or edge selection doesn't work on the end.
What part are you talking about? How I made it thicken?
Yeah.
So basically, once you're flat, if yours is like mine and you cut it down the middle, I selected some of these edges like this, and then all I did was just here. Let me. So I was here before, totally flat. All I did just drag it on the y-axis. Yeah. All right, so now at this point, your blade should have been, the origin of your blade should still be in the perfect center because all we did was drag that piece out to thicken it. So we're going to add another mirror modifier, but this time we're mirroring it on the y-axis.
So we have to select the whole blade.
Well, you got to go out to object mode. So before, nobody added mirror modifier yet. One thing to remember, sometimes you'll encounter really weird situations where you think something, it's like, why, this makes no sense. Why is this not working? For instance, look at this. My mirror modifier on the X is doing nothing. On the Y, it's pointing down. So why would can anyone guess, besides the guy who's already used Blender before, why would my Y axis mirror on the Z axis?
Oh, it's because you rotated it?
Right, because I rotated it and didn't apply that rotation to tell Blender this object is not oriented on the flat. This object is now actually oriented its origin on the X and the Z, right? It's up and down. So basically what you have to do is hit Control A, is your apply menu, apply rotation, and now look, it's gone and everything's exactly how I expect it to be. So the reason I bring that up is because it has come up a lot for me. I would encounter a weird situation that I don't understand, and I would have to think about, oh wait, I changed this. I have to apply that rotation for Blender to recognize that, right? So notice immediately after I hit Control A and applied that rotation, the Y-axis now mirrors exactly how we think. And we've got what's starting to look like an actual nice sword going on here.
Mine is mirroring the opposite.
What'd you call it?
Is there, I know there's Control C undo, is there a redo? Do you accidentally go too far back?
Yeah, Control Shift Z. But it's kind of weird. Like, I don't exactly know how it, like, where it draws that from. Because sometimes it won't redo what you think. I don't know how else to explain it. You'll just have to try it. So we got so now we got our mirror working. Oh, sorry, did you figure out why it was? Let me look at this. Did you apply the rotation?
Yeah. But it's
crossing the mirrors.
yeah.
Oh, that's going to be the origin, most likely. Take off the mirror modifier real quick and let me look at what you got. Or just the X right there. Yes. Did you have it? You chose Y? What's that?
This little dot here is the origin.
Yeah. Is it center? If it's centered, if that origin isn't where you think it should mirror across, and it might. See, I think what it looks like to me is those jagged blades you have may not be lined up on the origin. Hit 5 on the keypad to go back into ortho, and now hit find it, and now hit 7. So yeah, so see, basically your blades here go further on that axis than the origin. So when they mirror, they're gonna, yeah, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll show you guys something. I'll show you a way you can fix that. So another thing that I think a lot of people have a challenge with using Blender is knowing how to line things up, knowing how to get things back to where they're all perfectly lined up. So let me show you a quick example. I'm just going to add a plane. Let me pull it over here to the side. Okay, so I've got a plane here. I'm going to cut it. And now I've cut this plane in half. And let's say I have it, this piece. Now let's say I have this plane kind of something like this, and then this piece is like this, right? This kind of mimicking kind of what you got going on. So now I need to have all these pieces lined up on this axis right here. So there's a couple ways you can do that. This is a kind of some sneaky functions of Blender. The only way I've ever learned about this was through a guy's video on YouTube, and I don't even know how he learned about it. But basically, you can use snapping to line things up with other vertices, really, is what it's going to be. So we go down here to our snapping area, we got a menu right here that chooses what to snap to. So first off, if your things happen to be perfectly oriented on the grid, then you should be able to just snap to the grid and line it up. But usually it will not work that well. So what we're going to do is we're going to snap to the vertices. And now this is going to sound weird. This is a couple of keystrokes. I don't actually. I think you might be the only one following along with it. But so we're in Did you choose vertex down here on the snapping?
Yeah.
Okay, and now see how it says closest. So what you're going to do is when you go to grab, so choose all from wireframe mode. Choose that entire big like string of your vertices for your blade. So you can go into vertex mode and just have this, right? You want to hit G, and you're going to start moving it. We'll move it to where it needs to be lined up to, and see how it does that snap?
Yeah.
Well, when it's snapped, hit A, and what that does is now that makes that the active point of snapping. Then you hit the axis you want it on, and now see, I'm perfectly lined up again with that set of vertices. So that's kind of like some unique functionality there, but it's guaranteed to get everything lined up. Let me know if you want to see that again real quick. Once you got it, once you're grabbing it and it's snapping, you just hit A, and then you tell it, okay, it needs to be lined up on this axis, by typing Y, and then it should be lined up. Yeah.
After you're done, no, go ahead.
Yeah, man. Did it work, or is it still kind of?
Well, I'm gonna grab all the vertices.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. It's probably easiest to do it through the wireframe, looking on the top view, so you can just look down.
I just had to fix all mine because I had proportional movement on it, so I like everything on.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Well, that's because not because like you're not messing up. It's just so short. Okay.
Okay, so exactly.
No.
What are you trying to do?
Okay, so I try to keep it. Now it doesn't even do that. I did that.
Oh. So okay, so it controls the. Yeah, you're in edge select, which is fine, but you need to extend this whole thing out, right? Like you need to. So what I would do first is go click on face mode, grab that face, the very top. Just put it in here. So now grab this, drag that up on the Z-axis, because you want the sword. You're trying to get the sword to be longer, right? Okay. So zoom out some when you're now continue dragging it up to where you want it. And another thing is hit A and do Control N. So it looks like you got some geometry land. See how that goes through, but then that's also there. So you might want to try and hit X right now and delete that face. Go to just do face. There you go. Okay, that helps. So see all is it telling you is that basically you had it short, but you can grab each face and drag them up. So even these, you can drag those and drag it up on the Z. You can hit GZ, or you can do just what you're doing. So G is grab. That just allows you to do free movement with the mouse. Delete that face as well. So hit X. Okay, no, sorry. Undo that. Yeah. Basically, if you drag it, so notice when it was doing that, you had like that weird cross-hatching. If you drag something across something else, you end up with that effect. So I would now drag that edge up and just keep everything kind of expanding up as you go. Yeah, until you get your sword shape done. Does that kind of help with it? Yeah, the extruding is definitely weird to get used to, especially because you crossed over, and then you know, you get like that face that you had kind of laying on top at the beginning with the read stuff like that, right? Are you still making the machete? Something's going on up here. You got some like.
There's two vertices like last to me, and that's like a razor thin. So, I don't really know how to get like any more thickness. Like I'm just putting extra vertices like right here, just so that it's like it's flat along the edge with like an extra more extrusion that goes straight in.
There's a way. I mean, I can show you. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna show. It's called vertex roofing. I'm gonna show in a second. You basically have two vertices coming together. You can pull them apart and add anything in between. I'll show that right now. All right. Does anybody else need any help? Were you able to get that stuff lined up?
Maybe. Let's find out. Okay, so now, God, that's so fucked up.
Here, I'll show you. This is another thing that will help you right now. Select that entire line that's like kind of wonky.
Yeah.
And do this. So let me just make something real quick. All right, so I'm gonna have, say I was making a blade, and I got all these pieces.
Yeah.
And from the side, I had some vertices that are kind of like, you know, all jacked.
Yeah.
Like this. What you can do is go into edge select that whole entire string, and you're gonna hit S, and then you're scaling then on whatever axis, and then 0. So it basically, but it doesn't center them. It averages their location. So basically, see how this is my background. This is my other line. So it's not going to center that across here. It centers it on the average location of all these, right? So see, even though I did that now, it's still off center from where it was originally. Yeah, I did. Yeah. See how it? Yeah. So here, this is what it looks like without the mirror. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. All right, so at this point, we're pretty much done. I mean, you know, everybody, I saw a lot of you guys have a basic sword shape. So now, really, it's just going to be, do you want to add any decoration? And if you don't, then that's totally cool. But if you do, I'm going to spend just another maybe 20, 30 minutes. We've been going now for, you know, 2 hours. So I'm going to show just a few more quick things on how to add details. But other than that, I mean, you guys have made your first 3D model. Or you know, if it wasn't your first, you made another one, I guess. Congratulations. So one thing I think is this guard here. It needs something, right? It needs like some spikes or some bumps or something, or some more curvature, or, you know, something. One thing I think I'm gonna do is we're gonna bevel this thing. So beveling is also a very important modeling technique. It can make, you know, some shapes look much nicer. And you can do that by selecting an edge. So I've just selected, actually I'm going to select both sides of my guard here. And now you hit Control B. And as you roll the mouse, you will see that you're now controlling how much bevel. Ooh, look at that. That's what I was talking about, don't roll it too far. So I'm just going to add a little bit of bevel here. And then you click to apply it. And now you can see already that makes it look a lot nicer. I didn't actually apply it to these edges, so I'll just go back and do that. And now we've got some nice little bevel going on. You can, for the sword, there's a technique I'm going to show real quick. It's called a vertex rip. What this does is it will actually pull apart vertices on your mesh or edges. It'll separate them so you can add stuff in between. So, for instance, if we had a flat segment right here in between this, that was like, you know, there could be an inscription or something right there in the middle. I think that'd look pretty cool. So I'm going to select these 3 edges, and I'm going to rip them using V. That's just a hotkey, and you'll see what's happening here. I'm actually pulling my mesh open now. And then if you can isolate this to an axis just like you can anything else. So I hit V, then X. Oops. And I'm gonna move that out just a few little snaps. I'm set on snapping is on, and I'm set on increment snap, so it snaps onto the grid. And now I can go back, do the other side. And now you see my sword now is like open. And now I can add in some detail right there and make it look cool. And so what I think I'm going to do is, well, first, I don't think I want it to go to be open this far. So I'm going to merge those back together. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take this whole entire opening here. I'm going to hit F to make that a face. Okay? And so you see what I've done is now I ripped that mesh open, and then I created a new face from that opening. So something that's kind of like a pitfall that you can run into. The F key can be used to create faces and edges. However, see right here, I've got a face, but these are not. There's no edge connecting these 2 vertices. Like, this is what's called an n-gon. You'll hear that term in 3D modeling. An n-gon is something that is not 3 or 4 sided. Obviously, you know, a 2-sided is not. That's just a line. I don't think you can't just have a 2-sided polygon. So what you can have though is something with 5 or 6, or in this case 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, when you convert this into any kind of game engine, game engines cannot handle n-gons. Maybe one day the technology will exist, but for right now, every single game engine converts things to either quads, which is a 4-sided polygon, or a triangle, which is 3-sided, obviously. So you want to avoid having really extensive n-gons because when you get into a 3D game engine, it will triangulate that for you, whether you like it or not. And a lot of times it's going to be ugly. So it's better for you to do it yourself. For instance, this is probably what you would get in a game engine. While it's functional, but it's ugly. Especially if I wanted to go back and continue to edit my sword to make it look nicer. What can you do with this slanted edge? It just throws off our whole entire flow. So we're going to get rid of that. And we're going to go back to vertices select for anybody who's still following along and did this rip maneuver. If you select these 2 edges and you hit F, it looks like there's a new face there, but there's not. What you've done is you've created an edge that's laying on a face. And so basically, that is not good. That's just geometry it's kind of like having the 2, like when you scale something too far, extrude it the wrong way, it's laying on top of each other. You don't want that. So we're going to delete that. The hotkey you want is just J. So J joins the 2 and splits any faces underneath. So now if you look, I actually have a dot here representing these are 2 separate faces. So that's a pitfall that you can run into for sure, because there's not very much clarification on the fact that when you hit that F key, it doesn't actually split what's underneath it. And so see, now the reason I wanted to do that is because now I can actually take these little pieces and I can drag them to make my blade have a little bit more visual interest from the side. So I can like kind of, you know, I can take this face here, drag it out, and see, now look at it. It's almost like got a little bit of an indentation there. And you can see the facets when I turn it, like the built-in shader is kind of showing you, you know, that effect. So that was it. I mean, that was that's. I don't have anything else that I want to show you guys. For everybody that followed along, I guarantee that you learned something, even if it felt a little overwhelming. If anybody has any other questions, I'm going to hang out a little while longer. I can answer whatever. I can help you clean up your mesh. Here's what I made earlier. If you want to just compare the two, I made this one at home earlier. See, I kind of so the light blue you're seeing there is called marking it sharp. See how this one, the blade looks so smooth and shiny? That's just a shading thing. If I turn that off under shading flat, this is what it looks like. But I mean, you know, I kind of turned out kind of similar. Made a little bit more details on this one. I also combined, if you notice, I combined this sword into one mesh instead of 3 separate pieces, which you know, I can show you how, but you don't really need that. I think that for a lot of you guys who hadn't used Blender before, you probably got a lot out of this, just making all those objects. So that's all I got.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, this was fun, man.
Any Q&A?
Yeah. Any questions? Any other? Huh?
When's the next time you're doing this?
We can do this anytime.
All right, I'm gonna stop the live stream.